anyways, listen, hey, week 7 is here. As I mentioned, it's Bye-mageddon, Bye-apocalypse, whatever you guys want to call it. Too many big names on bye week, people that you got to figure out how you're going to fill in their role on your team. So we got some studs and duds for you. We're going to go into them right now. As a reminder, Wes and I each have one stud and one dud. These are guys that we think are going to exceed expectation, guys that we think are going to disappoint. And we don't know each other's studs or duds, so this is always going to be now a fun, open, just realization surprise of us having this happen here for week 7 and beyond. So Wes, tell me who your week 7 stud is. Me and Jordan both want to know.
Yeah, for everyone listening there in the Phoenix area, I want to convince you to start Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice. He's my stud for the week.
Oh, baby.
Oh, baby. So
yes,
we've been on this train for a couple weeks now, but really it was kind of confirmed when you mentioned him before, and then we kind of went into him as our waiver wire, and then we even talked about him last episode. Instead of Jordan Mason, we were saying, look, Jordan Mason is not Christian McCaffrey. He's not going to be the guy. He's not going to do what McCaffrey does. You're not going to get 30 points from him. So let's look at some other options, some better options. And the way Rashee Rice is playing, he is clearly the number 1 wide receiver for the Chiefs. Don't even be scared of McCole Hardman. That's not... When he was there, we never even started him. Tyreek Hill. No, he was not relevant to the Chiefs. So here's a couple of things just to give a little more statistical confidence. They're playing the Chargers, and they are allowing the second most points to wide receivers in the NFL. And depending on your PPR format, if it's half PPR, it's number 1. So they are very good for wide receiver matchups. Now, since week 3, Rashee Rice has either been first or second in wide receiver targets. All but 2 games, he's led all wide receivers in receptions. All but 3 games, he's led all wide receivers in yards. As of right now, he's leading the Chiefs wide receiver room in targets, receptions, and yards, and touchdowns. He is the quadruple crown champion 6 weeks in for the Chiefs wide receiver core. He's the clear wide receiver 1, and I am starting him in the midst of Bye-mageddon. I've got Garrett Wilson on a bye. Locking him in. I'm feeling pretty good. He's my flex option. I'm excited to see this come to fruition as a bona fide Chiefs starting wide receiver. He is my stud for week 7.
Yeah, I love Rashee Rice so much, and he is a guy that I have on multiple teams. He's a guy that I definitely tried to get in multiple leagues last week when I was telling you the waiver pickup it was on Tuesday, actually. Tell you the waiver pick up on Tuesday. I said, somebody I had claims in for, couldn't get him in every league that I wanted to get him in. But he is a guy that I believe needs to be 100% rostered. He's very, very, very good. And one last thing I'll add. Sorry, 2 things, actually. I have 2 things to say. Remember last week when we were like, whoa, Brandon Cooks just threw together a 15-point game. That was neat. Cool.
Yeah.
And then the Chargers allowed that there, and that was exciting. So, hey, week 1, remember when we watched River Craycraft be, fantasy relevant? And we were like, yeah, there you go. That's a fun time. No disrespect to Craycraft, but I will say Rashee Rice is probably a little bit better than he is. Hey, listen, it's going to be an exciting time for all of us watching this Chiefs-Chargers game. Last thing I'll say, too, is that think back over the years. The games we have gotten from the Chiefs and the Chargers when they have played each other. They've always been games that have been Game of the Year candidates. We think about Travis Kelce taking the 5, 6, 7 yard in route in overtime to the house. All the the yards after catch there. We think about last year, week 2, when there was a shootout there in Arrowhead when Justin Herbert broke his ribs, played through it. Had a fun game there. Listen, it's always been an exciting game. It should be high scoring. Should be a good time here. And I believe Rashee Rice should be locked in the lineups. I 100% agree with you, Wes. Rashee Rice is a stud candidate. It might just become tradition to talk about Rashee Rice on this podcast because it's been 3 episodes, 4 episodes in a row now, and I can't get enough of this guy. The breakout game is coming. Like the breakout is coming. The 25-point game is coming. And I thought it would be against Denver last week. It was not. It has a chance to be against the Chargers this week. And hey, maybe it'll be against the Broncos next week when they play them again. So who knows? It'll be a fun time. Rashee Rice, if he's available on your waivers for nothing right now, go grab him, please. Just do it.
Justin Herbert plays lights out against Kansas City. So this I anticipate to be a serious shootout, much to Marianne Doe's detriment, the super fan from the Monday night game.
Oh man.
What a sweetheart.
No, what are we doing? Oh my goodness.
Tell us about your stud. Who's the person you're rocking?
I'm hitting you with my stud here. And it's a guy, listen, it goes hand in hand. It's a guy that we've talked about a lot on the show as well here. But on Bye-mageddon week 7, Zay Flowers is absolutely a stud for week 7 here. The Detroit Lions are allowing at least 13.5 fantasy points to wide receivers over each of the last 3 weeks. Over the last 4 weeks, Zay Flowers has had a 28% target share in this offense. I expect the run game to struggle from Baltimore against the number 1 ranked run defense that Detroit has. So the pass game will have to be working there for Lamar Jackson. And when he wants the pass game to work, he looks for Zay Flowers. And it's exciting. Zay Flowers is undoubtedly a week 7 stud, and is who I want to hype up here. Get your expectations up there because he is going to blow them out of the water. He got his first touchdown last week. I think he finds the end zone again this week. It's going to be a fun time. Zay Flowers, week 7 stud.
And the Titans' defense is good enough to put any kind of litmus test to fluke or for real candidates, honestly, the way they're performing, and for Zay Flowers to continue to grow and develop as the clear wide receiver 1. It's a very similar situation with Rashee Rice because there's a talented tight end, and the wide receiver is the person that we're both advocating for as our stud. And Zay Flowers, something that you shared with me once, is that he's getting more targets than Mark Andrews. I mean, he is performing at a high level, and it seems like that he is becoming Lamar Jackson's favorite option on this offense. I don't want to say that we need to, sell Mark Andrews at this point. I'm just trying to prove and deliver the point that Zay Flowers is pretty much who we thought he was. There's still going to be a huge game to come. I know this, and could be this week, but he is an excellent option for all of the teams on a bye this week. I very much like Zay Flowers.
Me too. I'm a big fan. No more things to be said. Tell us who you're not a big fan of. AKA your dud, AKA who's going to suck.
Yeah. You know who's going to suck this week? It's going to be Javonte Williams. I have seen him in so many starting lineups across all 6+ fantasy leagues that I'm in. And I just want to tell all of you, don't start Javonte Williams. I know we're in a tough spot. Maybe you've got Joe Mixon. Maybe you've got Breece Hall, Tony Pollard. For those that are starting Dameon Pierce, I don't know why, but there's that. Yeah. You got Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard and, Derrick Henry, right? There's a lot of good running backs that are out right now, and it's like, well, I mean, he's the starter. I guess I'll roll him out. No, he's not the starter. He's not the starter. That's the thing. Jaleel McLaughlin had more of a snap count, and he literally started in their last game. Javonte Williams is not the starter. We can move on from him. He did 35% snap share last week against Kansas City. McLaughlin is the clear starter. I would much, much rather have to roll out McLaughlin than to have to roll out Javonte Williams. Do not start Javonte Williams for this week. Yeah.
I don't have much to say on top of it. It's a uncertain backfield. It feels like it doesn't seem like it's something that we can have a lot of confidence in nearly anyone. But I have more confidence in Jaleel McLaughlin than I do Javonte Williams right now. So it's something about an undrafted rookie running back who is getting the first snap of games, who's getting more snaps in games than Javonte Williams. it's something worth noticing and something worth taking action
Yeah.
over. So Javonte Williams is definitely a dud candidate for week 7. I have no notes. No notes.
No notes. Okay.
Jordan?
Close us out. Give us, Jordan, any notes? Any notes? I think he said cry. Is that what he said?
Yeah, I think he said cry. I'm not sure what just happened there.
Cry?
Okay,
Yeah, because he has
Thanks,
Javonte
buddy.
Williams in his lineup, so
Yeah.
he's like, oh, no, that makes me cry. All right, who's
thanks.
your dud
Thanks,
for
man.
week 7?
Well, I'm going to take you on a little journey. Well, actually, Wes, let me ask you: Have you ever been to Baltimore?
I've been to D.C. on a school trip, so
Okay.
I don't know if I was in the area
So
exactly.
maybe nearby. I mean, I don't know geography whatsoever, so we could just be getting flamed in the comments right now. Who knows?
So probably. I don't think
Just
it's actually
outside
all
of
that close. but-
there's a couple of suburbs in Baltimore, and one of them is called Studsville, and that's where Zay Flowers resides. And there's another one called Dudsville, and that is where Gus Edwards resides. Gus Edwards is a week 7 dud. No doubt about it. Detroit is giving up the fewest fantasy points to running backs this year. In fact, they've given up 2 rushing touchdowns to running backs all year. All year, that is, they've given up 2. We're week 7, guys. Week 7, and they've given up 2 rushing touchdowns. Detroit run defense is no joke. They have shut down nearly everyone they have played against. The only person who has had any sort of fantasy relevance against them was Kenneth Walker III. Everybody else has been straight up terrible. It's been so bad. Listen, so Gus Edwards, I know it's Bye-mageddon. I know it's tough. I know there's not many options. But I will tell you, and I join you in doing this, and I urge you to do this. Even on Bye-mageddon, in leagues where I have Gus Edwards, I'm benching Gus Edwards for guys like the aforementioned Jaleel McLaughlin. And even in one league, I am benching him for Jeff Wilson Jr. That is how strongly I feel about this, that Gus Edwards will not do anything against this Detroit defense. This game should be close. It should be tight. It should be back and forth offensively. They're going to want to be effective on offense. I expect to see Justice Hill get a higher snap share in this week than I expect Gus Edwards to get. It's not going to happen for Gus Edwards. I am pivoting to even the most unlikely of names this week if I have Gus Edwards. So, Dudsville resident, week 7 dud is Gus Edwards.
Dudsville resident. I feel like Justice Hill has also been more fantasy interesting than Gus Edwards.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago he was definitely it, and then last week it was like it felt like we were back to a split. There were leagues that I picked up Justice Hill because I was like, okay, he seems to be the more fantasy relevant one for the rest of the year. He's definitely got the PPR value here in this offense as far as a running back who could get targets, but as I mentioned, Zay Flowers getting a lot of targets here. Mark Andrews, Rashad Bateman, and Odell Beckham, I guess, when they're not picking their nose on the sideline. I don't know, but who knows? Gus Edwards,
Classic.
week 7 dud. That's just it. I am starting. I'm starting Jaleel McLaughlin, guys, over. Oh, I know this song. I think I've heard that song before, guys. I think that's how that one goes. You know
Oh,
that one?
yeah, that one.
Right. Yeah. That's a good one. Thanks, Jordan. We're going to close out the show.